Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's jump right in. Keeping a conversation alive. It's a really crucial skill, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because, who hasn't been there? That slow slide into awkward silence or feeling like you're, pulling teeth just to keep the chat going.
Yeah, those moments can feel like you're walking through a social minefield, kinda. For this deep dive, we've looked at quite a few sources, all focused on giving you some really straightforward, usable tips.
Tools, almost.
Exactly. Tools to, help steer clear of those conversational dead ends and hopefully become someone people really enjoy talking with.
Right. We're talking about those times your mind just goes blank and you're scrambling for anything to say. So our goal here really is to give you a kind of conversation survival kit full of simple but pretty powerful techniques, foolproof ways almost to keep talking.
Yeah, and it's maybe less about having like a perfect witty line ready, and more about understanding the flow of a conversation, how to keep it moving naturally.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty then. Why do conversations actually die? What are the usual culprits when things just, grind to a halt?
Well, often it seems to come down to maybe a lack of sustained interest or curiosity. Think about those one-word answers you sometimes get.
Oh, yeah. Good. Fine.
Exactly. They're like hitting a brick wall conversationally speaking. Or when someone doesn't ask any follow-up questions, it kind of signals they're not really engaged anymore.
She just drains out.
It really does. And sometimes, the fear of awkwardness itself is the problem. People get so worried about a potential silence that they overthink.
And then create the exact silence they were dreading.
Precisely. Yeah. I saw one analogy that was quite helpful, actually. Thinking of conversation like a game of tennis or maybe just catch.
Okay.
The goal is to keep the ball bouncing back and forth. One-word answers, no follow-ups. It's like dropping the ball. Game over.
Right. So how do we make sure we're keeping our end up, not dropping the ball?
Fundamentally, it seems to start with listening, but like really listening.
More than just hearing.
Way more. It's not just waiting for your pause so you can jump in. It's about actively paying attention to the words, sure, but also trying to pick up on the emotions behind them, the unspoken stuff.
So you're not just mentally prepping your next brilliant comment while they're talking.
Exactly. You're actually engaged. And a huge part of being engaged like that is asking the right kinds of questions.
Okay.
Open-ended questions are like your best friend here. We saw examples like, ooh, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
Or maybe what happened next?
Things you can't just answer with yes or no.
Right. They invite the other person to elaborate, to share more of their story, their thoughts. It taps into that, basic human thing of wanting to share experiences.
So instead of say, did you have a good holiday? Maybe something more like, what was the highlight of your trip? Or what made it memorable?
Exactly. That small shift makes a huge difference. It prompts a richer answer, gives you more to actually talk about. It shows you're interested in the specifics, not just ticking a box.
Okay, so digging a bit deeper than the surface stuff. What about those standard questions? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a classic one, isn't it? And it often gets a very standard, almost rehearsed answer.
Right. The job title and maybe a one-sentence summary?
Exactly. So the sources suggested trying alternatives that probe a bit more. Like, oh, that's interesting. How did you get into that field? Or what's the most rewarding part of that for you? Or even, why do you enjoy that?
So focusing on the how and the why behind it, not just the what.
Precisely. It gets into their journey, their motivations. It treats their life like a story worth hearing, not just a fact sheet.
And that makes the other person feel heard, valued.
Yeah, I think so. It shows genuine interest in them, not just their label. And that naturally makes people open up more, share more. You often find new conversational paths opening up just from that.
Okay, so they open up, they share something. How do we keep that momentum going?
Well, sharing a little bit of yourself can be really powerful here. A relevant personal story, maybe?
Yeah.
When they share something, see if it connects to one of your own experiences. You could say something simple like, oh, that resonates with me because, or that actually reminds me of this time when I...
It's like saying, I get it, or I can relate to that feeling.
Exactly. It builds that connection, that rapport, keeps the tone personal and engaging. But, and this is important, keep those stories concise.
Right. Relevant.
Yeah. You want to add to the conversation, not, launch into a 5-minute monologue about something vaguely related.
Definitely. Nobody wants to be trapped listening to an epic saga when it was just a brief comment. Now, it's not all just words, is it? Body language plays a part.
Oh, a huge part. Nonverbal cues are massive. They can either draw someone in or push them away without you saying a word.
So what are we talking about? Eye contact.
Yeah, comfortable eye contact, not staring, obviously, nodding along to show you're following, a genuine smile, even just like leaning in slightly can make a big difference.
It signals you're tuned in, present.
Totally. It shows you're mentally there, not just physically occupying space. And one interesting technique mentioned was mirroring.
Mirroring, like copying them.
Sort of, but subtly. Maybe matching their posture a little or their tone of voice. It's subconscious mostly, but it can build this feeling of rapport, make them feel more comfortable, like you're on the same wavelength.
That's fascinating. How we connect without even realizing it. Okay, so we've got listening, asking good how and why questions, sharing stories, body language. But what about asking too many questions? Turning it into an interrogation?
Right, that's a really important balance to strike. It's about being genuinely curious, not just firing off questions like you're ticking boxes on a form.
So less interview, more exploration.
Exactly. You want to show real interest in their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences. And a key part of that is mixing in acknowledging comments with your questions.
Like what?
Simple things like, wow, that's really interesting. Or, I never thought about it that way. It shows you're actually listening and reacting to what they say, not just lining up your next question.
Makes it feel more like a two-way street.
Precisely. A shared exchange, not a grilling. It shows you value their input.
Okay. Now, what about silence? That dreaded pause. Is it always bad news?
Not necessarily, no. Silence doesn't automatically equal awkwardness. Sometimes, actually, a short pause can be really useful.
Useful how?
It gives both people a moment to, maybe, reflect on what was just said. You don't have to feel this frantic pressure to fill every single millisecond with noise. Letting the conversation breathe can lead to more thoughtful points.
So a brief quiet moment isn't like a conversational emergency signal.
Not always. But, okay, if it does drag on and starts to feel uncomfortable, a good tip is to gently restart things by asking something like, what do you think about mention a related topic? It pivots smoothly without feeling totally random or forced.
That's a neat trick. A gentle nudge in a new but connected direction. What else really throws a spanner in the works for a good conversation?
Oh, distractions. Big time. Phones are the classic killer, aren't they? But also just like constantly scanning the room, looking over their shoulder. It sends a really clear message.
Yeah, you're not holding my attention, or something else is more important.
Exactly. Being fully present, really focusing your attention on the person you're talking to, that's huge. It's respectful, and it makes them feel valued, which keeps them engaged.
Phone down, eyes up. Got it. Okay, let's dig into some more specific techniques. We came across one called the ARE method. ARE, what's that about?
Yeah, AR. It's a pretty simple 3-step framework. Ask, respond, elaborate.
Okay.
So you ask a question. Maybe, do you like traveling? Then you respond to their answer, maybe adding a bit of your own experience. Oh, that sounds amazing. I love seeing new places too. Then you elaborate with a follow-up question, building on what they said. What's the coolest place you've ever been?
Okay. So it's a little structure to keep that back and forth volley going, like the tennis game again.
Exactly. Ask, respond, elaborate. It helps you dig a bit deeper into a topic naturally.
Cool. And then there were these tell me more phrases. What are some good examples people could use?
These are great for showing you're genuinely interested and want them to, well, tell you more. Things like, that's so interesting. How did that happen? Or maybe, what was that like for you? Even just an enthusiastic, no way, tell me the whole story.
They're like little invitations to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Verbal nudges saying, I'm listening, I'm hooked, give me the details.
Nice. Another one was bridging. How does that work?
Bridging is all about smooth transitions. You find a link, a little bridge between the current topic and a new one you want to move to.
So it doesn't feel like a sudden jump?
Right. So if they mention they love hiking, you could bridge by saying, oh, speaking of being outdoors, have you ever tried camping around here? See, hiking, outdoors, camping. It connects.
Got it. Keeps the flow logical. Okay, what about share plus pass?
Share plus pass. This is where you answer a question they asked you, but then you immediately pass the conversational ball back by asking them the same or related question.
Example.
If someone asks, how was your weekend? You might say, mine was great. Actually, I tried that new cafe downtown. Pretty good coffee. How about you? How was your weekend?
So you share a bit, then immediately put the focus back on them.
Exactly. It keeps things balanced. Make sure it's not just one person answering all the questions.
Good one. And we mentioned pauses before, but maybe worth revisiting quickly.
Yeah, just to emphasize, a brief pause, maybe just a couple of seconds, often makes you seem more thoughtful, more considered. Not necessarily awkward or like you've run out of things to say.
Right. Don't fear the brief silence, but what if you do run out of things to say? Like your mind goes completely blank. We've all been there. How do you recover?
Oh yeah, the dreaded blank out moment. It happens. One way is just to acknowledge it, maybe with a bit of humor. Wow, I just totally blanked. What were we just talking about?
Own it a bit.
Yeah, often diffuses the awkwardness right away. Or you could try a gentle pivot, like, anyway, what's your take on related topic? Or even a more random but maybe timely jump. Wait, before I forget, have you seen that new show everyone's talking about?
Okay, so you have options. Don't just freeze.
Exactly. And remember, most people actually enjoy talking about themselves and their opinions. So when in doubt, asking another open-ended question is almost always a safe bet to get the conversation rolling again.
Good fallback.
Fair.
Speaking of fallbacks, we saw the FORD method mentioned. FORD, what's that?
Yeah, F4D is a handy little mnemonic. It stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams.
Okay.
These are generally considered pretty safe, universal topics you can bring up if the conversation slows down. Ask about their family respectively, of course. Their job may be using those how and why questions we talked about.
Recreation, hobbies, interests.
Yep. And dreams, their goals, aspirations, maybe travel plans, what's something you've always wanted to try, or any exciting plans coming up.
So it's like a little mental checklist of potential areas to explore if you feel stuck.
Exactly. A conversational toolkit ready to go.
And using transition phrases can help move between these.
Definitely. Things like, that reminds me, or speaking of that.
Yeah.
They give you a smooth way to shift gears. And honestly, they can also buy you a second to think if you're feeling a bit nervous or unsure what to say next.
Little breathing spaces.
Yeah. And another quick thing, sometimes just offering a simple, sincere compliment can help.
Really? Like what?
Nothing over the top, but maybe something like, I really admire your passion for that, or even just, I love your energy. If it's genuine, it can inject a bit of warmth and positivity, maybe restart things if they were flagging.
A little boost. Okay, so these are all great techniques, lots of tools, but knowing them is one thing. Actually using them and getting good at it is another. How do people practice this stuff?
Practice is key. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like any skill, you don't get better just by reading about it. You have to actually do it.
So how? Just jump to more conversation.
That's part of it. But there's specific ways to. One suggestion was mirror talk.
Talking to yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. Sounds a bit odd maybe, but it can help you see your own body language, practice phrasing things, get comfortable with the sound of your own voice discussing things.
Okay. What else?
Setting yourself a small talk challenge. Like decide you're going to have one brief, maybe 2-minute conversation with someone new each day, the barista, the cashier, someone in line. Low stakes practice.
Building the muscle gradually.
Exactly. And another interesting one was podcast shadowing.
Podcast shadowing.
Yeah, you listen to a podcast, maybe like this one, pause it, and then actually respond out loud to what the hosts are saying, as if you were part of the discussion.
Huh. That's actually quite clever. Forces you to formulate responses.
It does. And beyond active practice, just observing helps. Watch talk show hosts. Listen to podcasters who are good conversationalists. Notice how they ask questions, how they transition, how they keep things flowing. You can learn a lot passively too.
Okay, so if people start consciously doing this, practicing, observing, using these techniques, what's the payoff? What can they expect?
Well, you'll likely start noticing your conversations feel easier, less strained. You'll probably find yourself going beyond just surface level small talk more often, getting into more interesting, engaging discussions.
Making connections feel more natural.
Yeah, potentially making friends more easily.
Yeah.
Feeling more confident walking into social situations, whether it's work events or parties. Over time, keeping a conversation going won't feel like this huge effort you have to consciously manage.
It just becomes how you talk.
Exactly. More natural, more intuitive.
Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the single biggest takeaway you want people to hold on to?
I think the core message is that the secret to keeping conversations going isn't really about having an endless list of witty things to say. It's much more about the combination.
The mix.
Yeah. The mix of truly listening, asking engaging questions that show curiosity, sharing relevant parts of yourself, and just being present and focused in that moment with that person.
It's not just what you say, but how you listen, how you engage.
Absolutely. It's that dynamic back and forth. And the more you practice these little techniques we've talked about in just your normal everyday chats.
The better you get, the more natural it feels.
Right. Leading to conversations that are just, well, more enjoyable and rewarding for everyone involved.
So maybe a good thing for everyone listening is just to notice. Notice your own habits in conversations over the next few days.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And maybe think about this. The best conversations often aren't the ones you plan out meticulously. They just flow. These techniques aren't about scripting conversations. They're more about helping create the right conditions for that natural flow to actually happen.